Hello, this is Gary at Jack Raven Bushcraft. Thank you for watching our video. Today I want to talk about debris shelters, or specifically the lean-to debris shelter. And I'll sort of show the main design considerations. Before that, we need to think briefly just about how we're going to, or where we're going to site our shelter. So the wind mostly comes from that direction. So see this little beginnings of a shelter here. The wind is going to come onto the back of it. Other things we need to be mindful of. So always take a look up above, see if there's any hanging dead wood, standing dead wood up there. That needs to be avoided. Animal trails, so we don't want to build a shelter on top of an animal trail. That could be large animals, so a game trail. It could be much smaller animals, so an ant's nest, that kind of thing, that's to be avoided. We know that hot air rises, so the flip side is that the cold air is going to sink, so we need to avoid cold traps. We need to avoid areas that might potentially flood. We also always need to be thinking about availability of resources, that kind of thing. So plenty of things to get us going on to, or to have us thinking about. In terms of setting up a lean-to debris shelter, we've got three main component parts. So I've got this ridge pole here running horizontally. I've used an ash pole here. It's a good pole. It's kind of probably about that much in diameter, so maybe 10 centimeters or so diameter. So it's going to be able to take the weight. By the time all the poles are leaning on this, and then we put all our thatching on it, especially if that thatching gets wet, the amount of weight on here is quite something. So this needs to be strong. So then I've got two Y-shaped sticks, one on either end. And again, these need to be strong. And so whilst the theory with a debris shelter is that you could just pick up sticks from off the ground, that kind of thing, for these three main component parts, you need to make sure that they are robust, that they're strong, that they're not going to snap. So as I say, guys, those are our three main component parts. In terms of how do we set them up, there's a couple of things that are really important. So I've got my ridge pole here onto the back of this tree. It's the same on the other side. If I had it on this side of the tree, and I'd see this quite regularly on various social media platforms where people post their photo of their shelters, I often see this ridge pole on this side. And of course, if you do that, as soon as you apply any weight, the whole thing's going to topple over. So what people do instead to stop that happening is they start tying it onto the tree. Now, cordage is a very valuable resource when we're in the outdoors, so we don't really want to use it unless we absolutely have to. And so what I'm going to suggest is, instead of using cordage, this is just a completely self-standing shelter, no string, no cordage involved at all. Make sure that you get your ridge pole pushing into the tree. Our two Y-shaped sticks here, these are on the inside, as opposed to here, the outside. So if they were on the outside, it's only a slim chance, but the thing has got to get pushed out that way, and then the whole thing could fall over. So our ridge pole is on the outside of the tree, and our Y-shaped stick is on the inside of the tree. This means that the structure is self-supporting, no string involved. So in terms of what kind of angle do you want your shelter, the poles on your shelter to be, I typically go for something that's kind of that. So probably closer to 60 degrees. Obviously, the more you have it that way, the more horizontal, well, the more room there is underneath, but it's going to be much more difficult to shed the rain. The closer it is that way, so the closer it is to 90, well, you've got no room underneath it, it's basically a fence, but it would shed the rain really easy. So this is it's a compromise, and for me that compromise is about 60 degrees. So that's going to give a nice bit of room inside there to lay down, keep out the rain if it should rain. So what I should do now, I've already collected up some poles. I'm just going to start leaning those up against my shelter. So you can kind of see the process from here. I probably need to get as many sticks again as there are lent up there so far, and then it's a case of getting the thatching on it. So we're in a native broadleaf woodland. The floor at the moment, there's not a lot of leaf litter left. November, yep, there was loads and loads of it. Now at the end of July, not so much, and so what I'll need to do is take a little bit of a wander and collect up some bracken, and that's our most likely kind of source of thatching for this time of year. Whether you've got leaf litter, if it's over the winter and early part of the spring, whether it's bracken, if you're in a conifer forest, then it's often easy to find branches that you can use. Start your thatching at the bottom, work your way up essentially. In terms of how much do you need, it's a lot. So one measure would be sit underneath it, and anywhere you can see daylight you need to put more. Another measure would be arm's depth, and especially if you are using this kind of as a thermal mass. So if you are reliant upon the insulation that the thatching is going to cover, then essentially as much as you can put on there, keep going with it. So with all of that said, guys, what I would like you to remember from this are these basic design principles. So our 3 component parts: a ridge pole, 2 Y shapes. The ridge pole poking is lent and being pushed into the tree, and our Y shapes are also on the insides of it. Remember those bits and you're not going to go far wrong. Of course, when we are building debris shelters, we need to remember our guiding principle of leave no trace. It is very difficult to build a debris shelter and leave no trace. Now here we have the landowner's permission to build shelters, that kind of thing. More often than not though, if I am out doing a spot of wild camping, I would not build one of these. I would just take a tarpaulin and put that up. It's much easier to do, much quicker to do, and I could just take the thing down again at the end of my stay, and essentially I can abide by this leave no trace principle, and no one will know that I've been there. This kind of thing, for me anyway, is probably more the kind of thing you would be thinking about in an emergency, in a survival situation, rather than going out into the woods for a few days to do some bushcraft. As I say, put your tarp up, spend the rest of the time working on your plant identification, your tracking, your tree identification, all of those other wonderful things that we can do in bushcraft. Hopefully this has proven useful to you guys. To make sure that you don't miss any future content, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and in the meantime, stay safe.